Welcome to More Than Words, a podcast about treating the whole child brought to you by the Reading and Language Learning Center. I'm your host, Tristan, and today I'm joined by speech pathologist and assistive technology specialist, Joan Green, to discuss leveraging technology to support attention, organization, literacy, and communication. Hi, Joan. How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Awesome. We're excited for you to be here. I mentioned this to Joan right before we started recording, but I think this is going to be an awesome episode for parents because assistive technology is everywhere and we just might not know it. So this is going to be awesome.
That's right.
Yeah. So I'm going to have you start with an introduction. So tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do, Joan.
Sure. So I am Joan Green. I'm a speech pathologist and assistive technology specialist. Sometimes I call myself an inclusive technology specialist because when people hear the word assistive technology, they think it's all this expensive, fancy stuff. And often it's just mainstream tools. But I started out working with adults who had strokes and head injuries and neurodegenerative disorders. And then eventually I started my own practice and raised four of my own kids. So I know what it's like to be a parent. My kids are now about 23 to 32. And we saw different specialists and had different challenges. And so I try to be very practical in my approach.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I love your usage of the word inclusive technology. I think that's a great way to describe it. So it's going to be awesome. So tell us, if people were looking for your services, like if they're trying to find you in the world or online, where would they go?
They would go to my website is probably the best, www.innovativespeech.com.
Perfect.
And, I have a lot of courses and webinars, and I provide individual consultation. And I don't do too much speech therapy anymore. So at some point, I have to rebrand and change the name of my business because I'm all about tech and empowering all people with tech, young kids and seniors. I work a lot with aging adults also.
Wow.
But I work a lot with parents who are trying to figure out what tech that they can use to help their children.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so I'll link your website in the show notes so that people can work with you there.
And I'm also on LinkedIn and Facebook
Okay.
and Instagram and
Perfect.
try to keep up with the social media stuff.
They can find you everywhere. Well, let's hop into these questions for the day. So I think a good starting point is just what is assistive technology, since we kind of are debunking a little bit of that it might have to be like expensive. So tell us about that.
Absolutely. Well, the official definition is that the 1988 Tech Act defined assistive technology as it's any item, piece of equipment, or product system, whether acquired commercially, off the shelf, modified, or customized, that is used to increase, maintain, or improve the functional capability of individuals with disabilities.
Oh,
And it also includes assistive technology service. So that's
oh,
often left out. So any service that directly assists an individual with a disability in the selection, acquisition, or use of an assistive technology device. So assistive technology is also evaluating a person's needs, training, and device maintenance. And those pieces are sometimes left out.
yeah.
But I usually say that a lot of our mainstream tech becomes assistive tech when you need it in order to do something that you can't do without it.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
a lot of our mainstream tools are assistive tech. Just the speech to text and text to speech that we can talk more about, but just the ability to have words read aloud on any of your devices or to turn your speech into written words. To me, I think that's a lifelong skill. I think everybody should be able to do it in any browser, on any device, and it's all free. But most people have no idea that that exists.
Right.
And that can be transformative for students. But many school systems are overwhelmed. And who's supposed to teach the student and who's supposed to help them learn how to do it? And who's helping the parents learn about it so they can help their
Right.
kids?
Yeah.
A huge, huge disconnect and need out there.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Cause I can think of, like every time Apple comes out with an update, right? If you have an iPhone, it tries to tell you, like, here are the cool new things, but often, like, people are just going to skip over it. But if
Right.
you took the time and like looked at those things, you'd be like, wow, Apple has a lot of stuff. And then even after that, there's, other assistive things they have in the settings that if you don't like go to look for them, if you don't know where to look for them, you have no idea they exist. So,
Right.
yes.
And that's all I do. I mean, to me, it's like my hobby and my joy, but it's
Yeah.
my business. It's my private practice. And I'm always on the lookout for those nuggets, like those gold mines of what can make a difference in somebody's life. And then for 6 or 7 years, I've stopped doing it now, but I've had webinars, free webinars every month for a number of years, highlighting all of these things. And I called it They May Not Know. It was at theymaynotknow.com because how
Wow.
do you know what you don't know? And how do you even know how to ask about it?
Right.
It's like this secret with Google and Microsoft and Apple. They have all these tremendous tools that used to cost so much money. I mean,
Right.
I remember spending a mint on just a touch screen
Oof.
or, word prediction software
Right.
or, used to really be complicated or, expensive augmentative communication devices. Whereas now you can use these phones and tablets with, extensions or apps, but it's pretty reasonable.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So let's hop into like the different kinds of technology. What are they? What's out there? Are there like you said, low cost versions? Are there high cost versions?
Sure. So I've written 4 books about assistive technologies. That's a big
Wow.
question. But, just in a nutshell, when I'm working with people, I always try to look for the lowest hanging fruit that will have the biggest impact with the least effort and expense, right? Like
Okay.
what can we do for somebody who has some kind of challenge or disability? How can we change something to help them overcome an obstacle?
Right.
And so that's what I start with. And so I always look into the settings of the devices that people are already using.
Mm,
So whether it be a Chromebook or a Mac or a PC or a phone, if you dig into those settings, you can turn on do not disturb. If that
right.
person is easily distracted, has ADHD, they're all over the place. That's maybe one of the first things that I do.
Yeah.
Or like that is a form of assistive technology. If without it, the person can't pay attention.
Right.
So, I think in my latest book, I talk about how, ed tech and assistive tech and personal tech, they're all merging,
Yeah.
so it's all becoming one and just knowing how to use it. So, and then, so there's built-in text to speech and speech to text on all of our devices, but sometimes that's not enough.
Yeah.
And sometimes people need more help. And so then I'll start looking into Chrome and Edge extensions or
Okay.
special apps, and getting, what kind of, what else, how specialized do I need to go? I mean,
Right.
it may be somebody that really does need an expensive dedicated communication device that costs thousands of dollars because they've got visual deficits, dexterity deficits, mobility deficits,
Right.
intellectual deficits. I mean, so not everybody can benefit from just the mainstream stuff.
Right.
Um, it just all depends. And so that's why people need to know what's available and to hopefully be seen by an assistive technology specialist or a speech pathologist or an occupational therapist. There are a lot of us who specialize in this. And so, but I think there really need to be more people. So I've actually created an assistive technology network of Greater Washington,
Oh, wow.
so that we can all be connected. All of us, reach out to me if you're in this area and you want to be a part of that group. It's free, no obligation. We just meet regularly and help each other out, refer to each other. Just, it's nice to know other colleagues that are in the same space.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Oh my gosh, I think that's awesome. Is there like an email or a website people should go to for that?
Just my website, innovative
Yours.
speech.
Okay.
I don't have a dedicated page for it yet, but
Yeah.
I do. It's just starting up, but I have about 40 people who are
Oh,
interested.
that's
And
great.
we're actually meeting today.
Oh, how
But
fun.
I think that a lot of people work in isolation and a
Yeah.
lot of people don't know what other people do or where to go.
Right.
Especially when a lot of parents aren't happy with what the schools are doing and they're seeking a second opinion or an IEE, an independent evaluation
Right.
by an assistive technology specialist. It's impossible to find somebody that works with the school systems.
Yeah.
So, there's a tremendous need out there. So the more that parents can do to try to figure this out,
Right.
the better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Advocate for your kids.
Right. Yeah, yeah. So I kind of want to get into different areas of tech and like what kind of tech could help in specific areas, I guess I should say. So like let's start with attention. You had mentioned ADHD.
Mhm.
What are your like, I don't know if go to is the right word, but what are your like first things that you start to recommend for attention deficits?
Yeah, no, go-to's just fine.
Okay.
I think um, you need to see the big picture of what's going on, first of all. I mean, tech isn't always the answer. That's another thing I want to say. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes it is the source of the problem, and there are a lot of problems that come with tech, and I'm very well aware of all of those. So we want to really minimize potential harm, but maximize potential benefit.
Right.
And so if somebody has ADHD, so then maybe you're thinking that they can't focus, you want to reduce distractions and you
Right.
want to do whatever you can to get somebody working in their zone of genius or, get in the flow
Yeah.
or whatever. And it also depends on age. So I work a lot with high school and college students on this.
Okay.
So I talked about reducing distractions, do not disturb on any devices, and blocking distracting websites. That's another whole topic.
Yeah.
But then some kids or adults need music in the background to help them focus.
Right.
So that can be something. I mean, maybe, and there are special stations and all that are supposed to really help with focus.
Right.
Um, Also, something that can help with focus is just keeping people on track. So most schools use Google, not all, and I teach a whole Google course
Yeah.
online, but setting up bookmarks, so that because it's easy to get distracted when you're in the process of trying to find something or
Yeah.
figure out what website to go to. So if you have bookmarks at the top of your screen in any browser, that just keeps you going without opening up doors to distraction. And then
Right.
if you're on a website, some are good and some are lousy. So if you're doing research and there are all these pop-ups and ads and whatever, you can use a reader view. And again, it
Oh,
depends on if you're in Edge, you can use Immersive Reader. If you're in Chrome, there's not a built-in one. So I use something, it used to be called Mercury Reader. Now it's called Postlight Reader. It's a free Chrome extension. And it's unbelievable. You just click on the extension, all the ads go away, and it
yeah.
maximizes the view. Are you familiar with that extension?
I love it. So I have it on Safari
Okay.
and especially, like recipe websites. I understand that normally it's like that's how they get their money is through their ads, but they are wildly annoying.
Yeah, you can't even find the content.
No.
It's hard. And so you just click that little
Yeah.
rocket ship and all those ads go away. And then it's easier to print. It gives you a
Right.
print view, which is lovely. And you can
Yeah.
change the font. I mean, it's the change the background.
Right.
It's great.
It's great.
Um,
Looks like an e-reader and you can change like the font size and the color of the font and the brightness of the screen. I love it.
mhm.
Yeah.
So those are a few things. I think also just optimizing the view. I mean, and being I mean, organization is another whole area, but I
Right.
think if you're in your, if you organize your day so that you're not sitting too long and you have breaks, structured breaks, and you have difficult tasks that you really have to focus on when you're ready to learn or when you're really able to pay attention, that helps attention too. So
Yeah.
making sure to get your exercise and eat well, I mean, all of that really helps attention. So really
Yeah.
looking at the big picture of your day and your
Yeah.
life and just trying to set yourself up for success and being ready to focus is
Right.
key.
Absolutely. And you mentioned the organization piece, so we can hop into that. Do you have tech that is best suited for, I guess, like organizing or keeping organized?
Yeah. In my Google course, we talk a lot about executive functioning and
Yeah.
organization and task initiation and all of that. And I think that my default is to go with Google Drive and
Yeah.
or setting up a system with colorful folders for for each class you're taking or for parents. Yeah, a lot of parents are at the first class I have with students if I'm working virtually or in home. And they end up wanting to have sessions too, so that they can get better organized because they
Yeah.
don't understand Google Drive. So I often end up working with parents a lot. And I think that you just have to have a system for where things belong so that you can find them easier.
Right.
Um, some students rely on search and they don't name their documents. And then, they just waste so much time trying to find where they need to be. And
Right.
so I am all about digital organization in cloud-based systems. I mean, it could be iCloud, it could be OneDrive.
Right.
It's often Google Drive with the schools. And then organizing your day with your calendar. So you could use Google Calendar.
Right.
And if a student is using Google Calendar, I think every single person should use a digital calendar. I feel
Yeah.
pretty strongly about that. Maybe the young ones, maybe under third grade and younger, could use a paper planner.
Hmm.
I mean, I remember when my kids were young, they had calendars in kindergarten, but it was paper-based with stickers. It
Yep.
changes as you get older. Um, but I live by my calendar.
Oh
And
yeah.
I always tell people, I mean, my husband still uses a paper calendar and I love him, but I am much more efficient. I mean, you go to a doctor's office, I can make the next appointment. He can't. He has to go home and call, and then for students, you can share calendars,
Right.
and then having a to-do list. So I like Google Keep and Google Tasks.
Yeah.
And Google Tasks is nice because you can give it a day and a time and it shows up right in your calendar.
Oh, that's
You have
wonderful.
subtasks, and Google Keep is more big picture. So
Okay.
I'm all about reducing stress. So a lot
Right.
of times you can go to keep.google.com and sign in with your Google account or download the app. And just a lot of people come to me when they're stressed. They're just really stressed.
Yeah.
And I just want to reduce stress for everybody. And so whether it's an adult or a student, I'll say, let's think of the big pictures of your life and let's just get everything out that you have to do.
Right.
Everything that's on your mind. Create a note, color code the note, and you can have check boxes. And then, really reduces stress once it's all out and down on paper and you figure out how to manage it, and
Right.
then you can share a note with somebody. You can turn things, type them up as a task and they show you up in your calendar. It might sound cumbersome, but it really, like, I do this a lot in one session with people and they just feel so much better.
Right.
Like that most students, especially high school students, they'll come to me and I'll say, well, how do you keep track of things? And what do you think they say? Do you have any guess?
Oh, I feel like they say, "Oh, I'll just remember it."
Yeah, I just keep it in my head. Like they have no system, or they go to the platform where
Oh, yeah.
school's portal,
Hmm.
whatever it is, they're all different, Canva or Schoolology or whatever.
Right.
And what the problem is that the due dates are often there,
Right.
but that's okay. The due date is there, but you need to backtrack and plan out how you're going to have things done on time. And so that's
Right.
it doesn't take a brilliant person to figure this out, but kids just don't think like that. And so
No.
sometimes you have to have the project written out, and then you can figure out steps that get you to that goal. And there's a great site for anybody listening. Go to goblin.tools.
Oh,
I don't know, goblin.tools.
yeah.
And it's totally free and you don't have to create an account. And you can just put in a project or a task. And then they're little peppers, and you can click on one pepper for not that much detail, or five peppers for a lot of detail. And you could put in a task like write an essay about the Civil War, or how can I bake a cake, or whatever it is. And
Yeah.
it'll automatically, using AI, give you a ton of steps that you can then edit or create
What?
more subtasks. You can determine how much time it'll take you. It's real. I use that with so many people, or you can use it as self-help. So somebody might
Right.
be very stressed and you might say, what are 5 strategies a fifth grader can use to reduce stress before a test? And
Mm.
it will give you really good suggestions. And that can be a conversation that a parent or a specialist or a teacher could then have with the student. You think
Right.
that makes sense? Would that work for you? That's a real
Wow.
practical tip that can help.
That's really cool. I love that. I love stuff like that where it gets the initiation like out of the way for you,
Right,
because
right,
sometimes that's the part where you're like, I can't figure out how to even start this. It's like I could figure out how to do the rest of it. Like the rest of it, once I get started, is going to be
right.
golden. But that initiation task, oh, that's great.
You can just
Goblin.tools.
put that in the calendar then, right? Because often
Right.
about, yeah, I mean, a lot of this, you have to figure out where is the problem, right?
Yeah.
What's going on? I'm good at solutions, but a solution is only as good as if you know the source of the problem, right? So
Right.
you got to ask a lot of good questions. But I'm just really practical with implementing a lot of this. And then we talk about how's it going. One other piece of tech for organization is it doesn't have to be digital organization. You can
Mhm.
have like backpacks, you can have messy rooms, you can have clutter anywhere, right? I mean, we
Yeah.
do it. And so I like to take pictures, before and after pictures,
Ooh,
so it could be that you take a picture of a desk that's totally a mess and then work together with your student to straighten it up, or together figure out where things belong, then take a picture
yeah.
and show the difference. And then next time, maybe seeing that picture will help that student get organized.
Wow.
Um, so that's just another way that you can use tech that's
Yeah.
not real techy.
Yeah. That's a great one, though. Everyone loves a before and after picture.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's move on to literacy, which is what, we at RLC specialize in, but we would love to talk about like all the different kinds of tech that, you see help with literacy.
Yeah. Well, when I think literacy, I mean, I know there are lots of aspects to literacy, and
Oh,
your
yeah.
practice is probably better at that than me, but I'm just thinking broadly of reading and writing.
Right.
And so I think that students that have dyslexia or a visual problem or language problem
Right.
or difference, not really a problem, but if reading is an issue, then the school should really be giving accessible reading materials, because an accessible curriculum is really important. And so I'm
Right.
still seeing way too many schools be paper-based, and that's
Oh,
such a problem for people that need help with having things read out loud to them.
yeah.
And so anything can be read aloud if it's accessible. And so, you know, again, this is a huge topic, but there are some textbooks are becoming more and more accessible. Anything that's online, that not necessarily embedded in an image, but text, all of that can be read aloud.
Right.
So Read and Write for Google Chrome is probably the most popular Chrome or Edge extension that
What
you
was it
can use.
called? Sorry.
Read and Write for Google by Text Help,
Okay.
an extension that can help read anything online.
Okay.
And if it's a PDF, PDFs are sort of different, that
Yeah.
Orbit Note or Cami, they're just lots of tools. And so I think what you have to do is figure out what needs to be read aloud, and then
Hmm.
you can Google it, or talk to an accessibility specialist to figure out how to make that happen.
Right.
Um, I mean, all browsers can read aloud for free. So again, Edge has Immersive Reader. With Chrome, you have to have an extension, and there are a whole bunch of them. Read Aloud, Read and Write for Google. Then if you're on your computer, you have built-in accessibility. So
Right.
if you have an Apple computer, a Mac, you go up to the Apple and you go to System Preferences, Accessibility, and there's a
Right.
shortcut to have things read aloud. PCs have that. All smartphones have that, so you can
Right.
hold it in your finger, select the text, have it read aloud.
Yeah.
For books, if there's a documented print disability, you can have Bookshare. Learning
Ooh.
Ally are really
Yeah.
great. More people should have Bookshare. If you have dyslexia,
Yeah.
you have free access as a US student to so many books and textbooks, but I don't know why people don't know about it.
Yeah,
It's
I when you said it, I was like, oh yeah, Bookshare. It's something that we recently were able to like work with our students on, but I agree with you. Not as many people know about it.
Yeah, I mean, the schools are supposed to provide that. And really, at the beginning of the year, they should provide digital forms of reading material for
Right.
students. But I think that people don't think about it, but families can sign up for a family account for free for the
Oh,
person. And you have to have the doctor's signature or a speech
right.
pathologist or somebody sign off on that there really is a true disability there,
Right.
a print disability.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important that all students have access to the curriculum, but then parents will think, well, we want my child to learn how to read, and
Yeah.
I said, well, work on reading, got to work on reading, right? And there are evidence-based practices, but after third grade, yeah, you're reading to learn, not learning to read anymore. And so at
Yeah.
some point, probably even younger than that, it's important to expose students to material beyond what they can read, so they're
Hmm.
not held back. With the whole writing thing, you
Yeah.
want to think about where is the issue, right? So you want to always be working on writing with a pen and paper
Right.
and typing. I mean, typing is now pretty mainstream.
Yeah.
Back in the day, we were teaching cursive. I've been doing all this a long time. It's sort of out of the picture, which is a shame because that's good for right left brain development. But that's another whole topic. But I think that if typing now is accepted. It used to be that a lot of students had to carry around a laptop and they were totally ostracized and different, and they
Right.
didn't like that. But now with all these one-to-one initiatives and everybody on a computer,
Yeah.
it's very much accepted. So typing, then you have different features, and we always want to think about what features does the student need to succeed,
Yeah.
to overcome barriers. So there's word prediction, there's speech to text, so you
Right.
can talk and have the words typed. But often students don't like that because in the school, then it's disruptive for the classroom. So maybe
Right.
they go into a separate room, or maybe they work on it at home. And that's a learned skill also.
Yeah.
People give up on it way too soon.
Mm.
Um, and if people have real slurred speech, dysarthria or apraxia, or they stutter, it doesn't work real well, or they
Hmm.
have the accent. But now with AI, there's some really cool new things.
Oh, yeah.
There's like Google Project Relate and Voice It Too, that people can train the system to understand their speech and sort of
Wow.
translate it or type it. Very cool. Um, so I work a lot with adults with Parkinson's and different ALS, and I
Yeah.
mean, to them, I mean, it's like an interpreter for them. It's
That's awesome.
amazing. And there's speech to audio. So if you
Oh,
get distracted by seeing the text written out, there's something called Mote, M-O-T-E, which is a Google Chrome extension, that and there's also what is it called? There's a feature in Read and Write for Google that also is speech to audio.
oh,
Um, and so you create an audio file that you can share if it won't be converted into text easy enough. So there are
wow.
lots and lots of options,
Yeah.
um, to access the curriculum and demonstrate knowledge.
Right. Do you have any thoughts on Grammarly? Is that something you ever use?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Grammarly is great for help. It gets expensive though.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
for sure.
but it there is a free version, but it's some people overly rely on it though. And for students,
Mm.
you want them to, it's always that tension,
Yeah.
between how much to use technology to help you versus learning the skill.
Right.
But with Grammarly, it will show you the types of corrections you're making all the time. So hopefully
Right.
you learn from it and not just overly depend on it.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I mean, there's one of my favorite new apps now is Google Lens. Have you ever used
Ooh,
Google
I
Lens?
haven't.
So it's totally free. If you have an iPhone, you download the Google app, just the colorful G.
Okay.
If you're on an Android phone, it's embedded in the camera, I believe. And
Oh,
what you do is you just open up Google Lens and you tap the little, you point it at something and it will read it out loud for you immediately for free. And you don't need
wow.
to be online. So if you're in a restaurant that has a menu in a different language, it'll also translate.
Oh,
So it can either just read aloud in English or it can translate for you, or it can find similar items. So people use it as a search tool. So,
yeah.
but in terms of reading, if you have a sign that you can't read, you can hold up your phone, tap on Google Lens, tap on the text, and it reads it out loud. So
Wow.
that is really amazing. So that's AI. I mean, there are all these
Yeah.
tools coming out now with AI that help.
Yeah.
And summarization. I mean,
Oh,
there
yeah.
you go on and on and on. With reading, you can put in PDFs and have them summarized if you can't, and simplify. Like,
Wow.
right, it can be a high level research paper that you can have it simplify and summarize for a fifth
Right.
grade, and it will write it in easier terms for you.
Wow.
These are it's exciting times. These are
For
lifelong
sure.
tools.
Oh my gosh. Well, I do realize I've heard of Google Lens and I have like seen some of its capabilities, but I've never used it myself. And so now I know and
And
I'll
it's
probably
also
have to
really
use it.
helpful for identifying items.
Yeah.
So, when I work a lot with seniors, and when I see something and I don't know what it is, you can, you know, open up Google Lens, tap it in your view, and then it'll find similar items.
Wow.
And so then you can see what it's worth, maybe,
Right.
if you want to try to sell it or you want to figure out what it is.
Right.
Lots of different ways to use it.
Very cool. My our last area that we have on here is communication, which I think is often like what people assume is assistive tech. So let's hop in there and see kind of what we got.
Sure. Yeah. So a lot of people will think of assistive tech. They think of dedicated communication devices
Right.
by Toby Dynavox or Pranky Romick and Lamp Words for Life. Or I mean, there's a whole world of AAC, and
Yeah.
AAC is augmentative and alternative communication, and that's for people that are unable to say what they need to say well. And
Right.
I think a lot of parents are reluctant as their kids are younger and developing language to use an augmentative form of communication because they think it's going to stop the student from talking. And
Mm,
really, it's the opposite. It helps reduce the stress. It helps them learn to speak. It can act as a model, and you can have gestures in with that. So, but I think that there are lots of reasons why you want to use augmentative communication. I mean, I work, somebody has surgery and they're intubated, if somebody's
mhm.
older, if somebody has apraxia, autism. I mean, there are a lot of different types. There are free apps that you can use, or you can type and have things said aloud as a form of
Oh,
communication.
yeah.
It all depends on the person and their ability.
Right.
So a lot of times I try to help families figure out, um, if the person is totally nonverbal, you might just be at a stage where you're modeling how to use it. You're trying
Right.
to teach language and communication.
Yeah.
Um, and then I also really say that our devices are really forms of augmentative communication. So
Yeah.
photos, using photos or using contacts in the person's name, using a calendar, using maps,
Yeah.
so I work a lot with stroke survivors and head injury survivors. And so a lot of times they can use these tools to help communicate a message or to help them have their communicative partner use those tools to
Right.
communicate with them and put something visual. The use of visuals is just so important.
Yeah.
Um, so I mean, there's so many different apps and things I
Yeah.
could talk about, but just knowing that all of this exists,
Right.
and I offer free 15-minute phone calls for anybody anywhere. And so if you go to my website, innovativespeech.com, you can just click on something and it opens up my calendar, and up to 3 days in advance, you can just click on a spot and I call you. And I do
Love it.
probably 3 of those calls a day because it's hard to know what you don't know and it's hard to know where to start.
Yeah.
Not a real pushy salesman or anything. I'll just say, look into this, look into this. I mean, if they want to hire me, fine, but I'll always try to point somebody in the right direction
Yeah.
because it's hard to get someone on the phone and ask for advice.
Yeah.
Normally it's just hard these days.
Yes.
So I'm a mom first, and I'm the daughter of, a 91 and a 92-year-old who need a lot of help with tech. And
Yeah.
so I have this whole elder tech advisor network that I've started, and it's tough because it's changing so fast, and
Absolutely.
people feel left behind and overwhelmed.
Yeah.
So I sort of flew through a whole bunch of potential solutions, but just trying to figure out what the need is and start small, just with what you're already using. And that whole world
Absolutely.
of Alexa and Siri, that's
Yeah.
another whole area I didn't even talk about.
Yeah.
Um, I use Alexa a lot for reminders.
Yeah.
I need to stay on track with my Zoom sessions and different things. So I like, and I have my Apple Watch. I mean, I think
Yeah.
watches can, there's all kinds of tech
Oh,
uh,
yeah.
to help with a lot of this.
Yeah. I love the we call them ALEXA devices because they'll turn on.
Yeah.
But I love them for like timers when I'm cooking and just like asking what the weather is before I leave the house, all of that stuff. It's the best.
Yeah, I remember when my dad had COVID, he was really sick and he was in the
Oh,
hospital for a few weeks, and the
yeah.
only thing he wanted was his Echo Show because he could listen to the news, he could listen to music, he could call me, all this stuff just from the
Yeah.
bed.
Wow.
Get reminders and there's a lot that you can do. But in terms of students, you can also ask questions,
Yeah.
and get some help.
Yeah.
Um, and I
Very
didn't even
cool.
cover the whole world of apps for learning.
I
You know,
know.
Khan Academy Kids is fantastic. I mean, they're apps to improve skills too. I don't
Yeah.
usually consider those assistive technology. They're more
Okay.
of the ed tech. So I didn't talk about those too much. But there's just a lot of tech that as parents, you can think about if your child is having a particular challenge in a certain area, how can you make it fun to learn? It's sort of
Right.
gamified with the help of technology. So if kids are going to be on the screens anyways, let's make it productive and educational.
Right.
So I
Yeah.
help kids a lot with that too, trying to figure out the educational. My kids always called it educational tech and junk tech. I limited the junk tech, but I'm okay with educational tech as long as you've gotten some exercise and
Right.
done the other things that you need to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, So, one thing that I think is often a conversation with AAC, but I mean, goes for all tech, is should parents and teachers use their child or students' tech when they're working with them, like with them, and if so, how should they practice like with that tech, maybe before they get to talking to that student?
So if you're talking AAC, so
Hmm.
a lot of people would say that AAC, if somebody has a dedicated communication device or an app that's locked in with guided access to an iPad or something like that, that's the child's voice, and you shouldn't demo on that. You should have
Okay.
another device. Um, but that being said, and some people care and some people don't. So I think it really depends on the person you're interacting with.
Right.
It just depends. I mean, if you're going to try to learn, I mean, then I also think of other types of tools, like all the Google apps. If you're
Right.
trying to work with your student on Google Docs and show them voice typing or whatever, you can either practice on your own and get good at it and speak from confidence,
Right.
or take the approach that you're learning together, let's figure this out together. And you sort of collaborate with your student who may know more than you in some ways, and it sort of makes them feel good about their tech.
Right.
And then you help them. So I don't have a pat answer about that. It
Yeah.
depends on what the purpose is of your interaction, I think.
Yeah.
Uh, but I didn't say one thing that I find is that I work a lot with twice exceptional students and autistic students, really all kinds of students. But I try to make tech be their superpower,
Yeah.
because if they have communication problems or reading problems or writing problems, give them as many choices as they can. Like, try to make them feel empowered and in charge within limits. they take ownership over the tech,
Yeah.
and they need to really understand why they're using it, what their needs are, what features they need, because so many students get to college and they don't know what their needs are. They can't self-advocate because everything was done for them.
Yeah.
And, so I think that that's just something important, because I have college and high school students that still rely on their parents to type up their essays, and to read aloud to them.
Yeah.
They've never really learned that they depend on their parents still. And,
Yeah.
I think that it's all out of love on the parents' side, but
Yeah.
parents need to really let go a little bit and let the kids be more independent and self-sufficient. In the long run, that's going to be so much better for your child. Let them fail a
Right.
little bit in the younger grades
Right.
and look why they need these technologies. I don't think we want to help them too much
Right.
all the time. We have to give them those tools to help themselves. And I think tech can be that tool. That's why I think it's so important for kids to learn about this stuff.
Yeah. And I think like that is a great point too, because I wonder if those parents are like worried that their kid doesn't know about the tech, or that they like, or if they don't realize that the tech is there, right? And so they're constantly doing, like you said, like the read alouds and helping them type the essays. But maybe if they knew this tech was present for them, and like kids, I swear kids are like very good at technology. I have a 5-year-old niece, and when she was 4, I was playing Animal Crossing, and she was like, "Can I play with you?" I was like, "Sure." I showed her how the buttons worked. I walk away, she's like grabbing the fishing pole herself, like doing all of these things. They're so good at tech. So I think, like you said, if the parents know that it's present, they
Yeah.
can have the let go, and they can be like, all
I
right,
think
you know how to use
not
it.
all are great with tech, but most are, but they don't think how to use tech to help themselves.
Right.
Don't think of, I mean, I have, I shouldn't talk too much about my own kids, but I have two that are computer specialists. Like, they
Right.
are out in the world, one's an engineer and a computer scientist, and one's a physicist in the computer science. Like, they are
Ooh.
smart kids. But they don't think about how, they don't, I always, it's like a contest, who knows more tech,
Yeah.
So I know all the accessibility stuff that they
Right.
don't know. And, I I think that a lot of kids are great gamers and they have a lot of good information, but they don't think to use tech to stay organized
Right.
or efficient and productive. Or if you're not interested in something you're reading, maybe reading it aloud as
Yeah.
you read will help you stay focused. I don't know, there are a lot of little tricks that don't come naturally to a lot of kids. At least that's what I'm finding.
Yeah.
They don't think to use it in different ways.
Right.
And I think we need to make them aware of that. But people don't know what they don't know.
Right.
That's why I love doing podcasts like this. I
Yes.
love to spread I really like to encourage people to sort of take a deep dive into this.
Absolutely. I mean, as you can see, I love this stuff too. It's definitely where I, thrive. It's kind of like I like to tinker with the tech. So I like finding all of the new things that come out on the iPhone or the Google Chrome and all that stuff. So I'm with you. Um, so my last questions I'm kind of gonna like mash together because I think I know the answer to the next one, which is how have you seen technology improve a child's life? And I'm sure you're saying, yes, of course it has, right? And my other question for you was if you had any anecdotes. So I kind of want to mash them together. Do you have any anecdotes about like how tech has improved a child's life?
I mean, there are just so many. I think that it can just broadly, it reduces stress and it
Yeah,
empowers them to sort of tackle challenges moving forward.
right,
So if you don't have to rely on somebody else to read to you or to type for you and you can do it on your own, that's huge.
right.
College students that are struggling and then they learn how to use Glean or Otter AI or some of these other tools that use AI now that you can focus on a lecture and learn and let an automatic transcription happen and get summaries. And I mean, there's some really cool stuff out now. It just really takes that pressure off.
Right.
So I think I'm always, we have a crisis of mental health in students these days.
Yeah.
And I think with the older ones, when they feel empowered with this tech, they become so much happier
Right.
and carefree. And I mean, that's what I'm just about quality of life,
Right.
just, and taking the burden off of parents, the more that we can get kids to do more on their own, the better.
Yeah.
And for the younger ones, it can, if they feel they're not good at anything, tech can be something that they can learn to be good at. And
Right.
I've seen it happen so many times that they then become like their classroom tech specialist
Yeah.
and know how to do this stuff. And a lot of teachers will have that person teach how they do what they do to other people, to
Right.
other students. And that's just such a great thing to see that smile on the
Yeah.
person's face. And in terms of communication, if a lot of behavior, they call them behaviors, I don't really like that term, negative behaviors.
Right.
A lot of people unable to communicate end up behaving poorly. I think that's all because of poor communication skills.
Yeah.
And so if we can find ways to help them express their needs, thoughts, and wants better, it just
Right.
improves their ability to interact with people and enjoy life.
Yeah.
It's not
Absolutely.
also negative.
Right.
Uh, so I love assistive technology because really just a few changes can have a dramatic impact on somebody's trajectory.
Yeah.
So that's why, not that speech therapy is bad. I loved doing
Oh
speech
yeah.
therapy, but this, to me, I just see faster results.
Yeah.
And the technology has changed, and a lot of people aren't comfortable with tech.
Right.
So that's why I try to infuse it in I actually work a lot with speech pathologists and occupational therapists and
Yeah.
educators and tutors and parents. I don't always work directly with the person who needs it, but just trying to I've trained the trainer programs
Right.
because it can make a huge difference, but it's hard to keep up. And it can be
Absolutely.
really overwhelming and frustrating.
Yeah. 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 Well, I
So,
think that was my last question for you. Do you have anything else you want to add before we sign off?
no, I hope this was more encouraging than overwhelming. If hopefully anyone who's listening to this, if you came up with one or two tools to try,
Yeah.
and maybe team up with your student or whoever you're doing this, learn together, make it a family project.
Yeah.
The kids have a lot to offer, and so we want to, really maximize their strengths. And so if you just make them aware that you're interested in this and learn about it together, depending on the age of the student, of course, it can be a really great thing for families
Yeah.
to figure out together.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Oh, one more thing. In the
Oh
summers, I
yeah.
often have these, and I call them, what do I call them? I don't know, because people are so busy and stressed during the year. Summers and vacations are a great time to focus on tech.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll do family sessions
Oh,
where everyone in the family comes on and we get started with Google Calendar and Google Keep
yeah.
and Google Docs and just how to use it, and everybody make a list of fun things to do this summer or something, and intensive tech training over the summer so that you can spend time learning how to use something before you need to rely on it.
Right.
It's often really important.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I have loved this. Like I said, I am the same way with like I love the new tech and I love finding all the little nuggets and sharing them with people. So this has been a lot of fun for me. But I
Oh,
also
good.
know that it will be helpful to parents because there are so many things that you mentioned that I might have like either heard of or never heard of and never even thought of that I think are going to be immensely helpful to people. So thank you for being here.
And again, on social media, and I have a newsletter where I'm constantly sharing all this information. And I have
Fabulous.
a Facebook group
Okay.
called IST Tech Savvy Solutions that people help each other out.
Sorry,
So
say it one more time.
it's called IST for Innovative Speech Therapy, IST Tech Savvy Solutions.
Okay. Perfect. I'll put
So
that down
that's
there
on
as well.
Facebook. Yeah. Well,
Awesome.
thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And thank you for being here. Thank you so much to the audience for listening. Make sure to subscribe and leave us a little rating and review. It helps other folks find the podcast, and we'll chat with you next time.